Today's episode is brought to you by Real Estate Radio Experts. If you want to dominate your market, radio is the singular marketing tool that can put you on top. You cast a giant net. You reach thousands of people in a single spot. You get instant trust, instant credibility, and you know what happens? You get come list me leads. It's it. You're done. If you thought it was too expensive, it's not. It is not. You can't afford not to do radio. Every single person that is dominating their market that I've had on this show does radio. Why don't you? Probably because you don't know how. And you know what? Look, I spent 7 months perfecting this model. So look, if you want to do radio, send me an email. Go to realestateradioexperts.com, fill out the getting started page, and let me know. And look, if you don't do it, that's okay. That's okay. Your competitor's gonna. Everybody wants to do radio. And look, there's not been a whole lot of avenues to really create a winning campaign, right? You got to have the right message. You got to talk to the right demographic. And you have to deliver that at the right time. So look, go to realestateradioexperts.com and let's get you on top. Welcome to Super Agents Live. This is the one place where you can come and hear the most successful people in real estate. You'll hear how these super agents built their businesses, how they stay productive, and how they stay motivated. Who am I? My name's Toby Salgado, and I made my first $1 million in real estate. Yeah. And I'm your host for the next 30 minutes while we talk to yet another amazing real estate entrepreneur. Stay tuned.
Let's go! Yeah!
Hey, everybody. Look, before we get to the content, real quick, some housekeeping. This episode goes live on Friday, February 6th. And you know where I'm at? I'm at Keller Williams Family Reunion. I'm there for the next few days until Monday. And if you're there, seriously, man, hit me. Send me an email. Let's get together. I give you kind of a little overview of what's happening on this episode. I just don't have time. I'm packing. I'm in the middle of a bunch of stuff. So sorry about that. But I do make notes, when I save it. And on this one, I said, I put his name down and I said, good. So you know what? If I put good, it's probably good. I hope you love it. Now, before we get there, I just want to let you know, if you don't want to miss future episodes and tips and tricks that you're going to hear in today's episode, what you're going to want to do is go to the website, superagentslive.com, and download my book so I have your email and I can let you know what is new and coming out. And two, join the free membership site. I have a lot of good content there, a lot of great content on how to use Facebook, tracking, how to track leads. I have spreadsheets. Look, I spend a lot of time creating that stuff. And I have scripts there. So anyhow, sign up, go to it. All right. Hey, let's get to it. Here we go. On the show today, I'm really excited to talk to my guest. His name is Stephen Cohen. He's in Boston. Now, as Boston's Boston, his average sale is right around $1 million. He has a team of 8. He'll do about 90 transactions, and total volume is going to be about $80 million. So again, I'm thrilled to welcome my guest, Stephen Cohen. Hey, Stephen, thanks for taking the time out today.
My pleasure, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, look, so I've given the audience just a nuts and bolts overview of what you're doing, but take a minute before we get to your business. I want to know a little bit about you. So take a minute, tell the audience about yourself, and then we'll get into your business.
Okay, I've been in real estate on and off since 1985, mostly on. I did break to do a graduate degree in business. And I briefly worked in the investment field and wrote business plans for an investment bank, and looked at that field. And it dawned on me as I was sitting in a Ramada outside of Scottsdale discounting cash flows one morning at too early an hour for any real estate agent I know, that I was really already doing what I really loved to do. And so I decided to come back to real estate and to use it as an opportunity to raise the bar. Treat it very seriously as a career. Unfortunately, the industry has matured along with me and my team.
Okay, so that's interesting. So on and off, I'll tell you something. When you got into real estate from investment banking, I mean, I'll tell you a story. I know a bunch of investment banking guys, right out of college, and literally, these younger guys, like I'm sure you were, working 80, 90, 100 hours a week, were making money. But I remember a few of these people telling me, they said, you know what? I was making money. I could buy a brand new BMW, but I couldn't drive it because it was working too much. These guys would go and have lunch in their car just to be able to sit in their car. I mean, was that what because you said you were up really early. Does that sound familiar to you at all?
Yes, in the sense that I did understand that that's what the life of an investment banker was. I never even got that far into it. I had come out of an Ivy League business program. I had an MBA. And it was almost reflexively that I went into that world thinking, well, that's what we do. Those were the firms that were interviewing, and those were among the opportunities that presented themselves, and I kind of made a foray in that direction. And actually, I was just really writing the business plans. I did get an offer to go to New York for a sum of money that I didn't really think I could live on in New York, but with the promise of a whole lot more. But quite frankly, it wasn't a money thing. It was a lifestyle choice that I was making. I think I never really conferred upon real estate the respect that I think it's due as a profession.
Yeah.
I think it is a low barrier to entry profession.
Yep.
And let's face it, we have over 1 million people practicing it, and in that mix, in this country, and in that mix are people who treat it as a casual second job. They don't take it that seriously. And I think that's reflected in what they bring to it. And then I think you have a whole lot of people who do take it seriously. No. And the entire business, the reputation of the field, however, I think is diluted by the fact that it, it's perceived as something you can do part-time or, not be in it to win it. And the fact is that I think most real estate professionals are really, they're working very hard. And I often say that real estate people are like congressmen. People don't like them, but they like theirs.
I had to think about that for a second. But yeah, I mean, look, so I agree with you. I mean, there's a very low bar in real estate. I think it, in a lot of ways, kind of has a bad name because, coming out of the last boom, you literally would go to the grocery store and the person bagging your groceries I heard it over and over again. Or the girl cutting your hair. Oh man, I'm going to be selling real estate next week or next month. How for you, Stephen? So Ivy League MBA. Now, is this Harvard we're talking about?
Yale.
So Yale, you have a very, very expensive education. That had to have been. Was that a struggle for you to go? Yeah. Listen, I spent a ton of money. I'm a super smart guy. I'm top 1% in the world of what I know, but yet I'm going and I'm going to start hawking houses. Was that a struggle?
Yeah, it was mostly a struggle in getting over myself, though.
Yeah.
Because, the truth is that real estate as a profession, if you practice at a high level, is going to demand everything of you that any career in one of the professions we hold in high esteem in our culture will demand of you. So I had to really get over myself and realize that there's dignity in anything that you bring dignity to, and that real estate is a field that you can practice at a very high level. And in which intelligence, passion, competitiveness, and I think acumen, many things are going to be required that will serve you well in other fields too. So but I think it really sprung for me from the fact that that's what I loved to do. There was very little connected to real estate that I didn't love, ranging from the finance angle to architecture to the thrill of a sale, being service oriented, the marketing. There were so many things connected to this field that appealed to me, and yet I chose to go for a degree, the graduates from which really went in mostly other directions. Now that's changed quite a bit. There are many people now brokering real estate who could do anything they want to do, and they've chosen this field.
Yeah, no, I agree, and how in terms of getting an MBA, that's changed, right? I graduated from college in '94, and everybody wanted to go from undergrad to get an MBA because that's kind of then you could move into investment banking or consulting, right? Those are the two paths. Today, with the rise of everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, MBAs in Silicon Valley, and you have what is your valley out there? What is your valley in Boston?
Well, we have Route 128, and all the tech firms that are there.
Yeah,
there's
a term for it, but that doesn't matter. But look, here's the deal. Now an MBA is an ugly word. Even if you have an MBA, nobody wants to admit it. So here's what I'm curious about. So again, you're top 1% in the world. You're a very smart guy. What did you do? From how did you start to build your real estate business, knowing all this, this high level MBA stuff?
Well, for one thing, I began to realize as I looked at the top performing agents around the country that they weren't doing it alone. And in fact, not to denigrate any other profession, because the investment bankers work very hard at what they do, and they need a whole lot of skill to do it. And MBAs from all across the country, they deploy into various professions, and they need to be on their game, and so do the real estate agents. So I think we all want to look at our fields and we want to model after those who are practicing at the highest level. And those people virtually all had some form of a team. Mm-hmm. Something in place wherein the functions that the agent has to fill or serve, that the roles are differentiated, and that there's someone for each position who can execute that position better than anybody else, because nobody's good at everything. And so when you have the right people in the right positions, then you are delivering your service at a much higher level. And I think that's the truth. That's the truth for consulting firms. I think it's for the financial services firms. It's true in your doctor's office. You don't walk in and have just the doctor there. You've got people all around the doctor making sure that the total product and the total service, the total experience for the patient is superior. So I noticed that. So the first thing I wanted to do was to build a team, to put together a group of people so that what we were producing was better than what I could do on my own.
Got it. Now, and look, you said a bunch of very interesting things that I want to dig into there. But I will say this, in terms of that doctor analogy, you said that nobody's great at everything. And if you do not, I don't want to walk into my doctor's office and see that he's, dumping the trash and answering the phone. Now, that's okay. I mean, that's, great. You have that good work ethic, but I want you to specialize, man. I want you to be my doctor. I think there's a very important point that you bring out, and I want to get to the positions and how you've built your team. But I want to go back real quick about just the team concept in general. Now, we were chatting for a few minutes before we started recording, and there are two camps out in the marketplace. There are one camp that's all about teams, and then there's another camp that says, you know what, man, those people who have big teams, yeah, sure, they're putting up numbers, but they're not making any money. Maybe address that a little bit, as much as you feel comfortable.
Sure. Well, there are two different questions. One question is, how do you make the most money? And the other question is, how do you deliver the best service that you can deliver as a real estate agent, the best result for your customers and your clients? And there are teams that just are bloated in size, where everybody's not pulling their own weight, where you're really not getting a better result in measure with the number of people you have, and where the profits are lower for the fact that you have all of these people, on the team. So you don't want to model after that. But on the other side of the equation, you've got, solo flyers, individual agents, and there's just no way that they are going to be able, first of all, to do everything they need to do well in a transaction. Nobody is that person. Nobody is a superior marketer and pays great attention to detail and is mercurial and a great communicator. And nobody is going to have every skill and be of every behavioral type. And so I guess I wouldn't want to choose between those. I start with the given being that no one succeeds alone. Okay. And that a team is absolutely, if it's a well-structured team, and if it's well chosen, if everybody's trained, if the light is on, that you're going to have a better situation in terms of the actual product and the service that you're delivering. And then for the difference, of course, it has to be cost effective. Naturally, you don't want to dilute. I mean, I would say teams, clearly on a net basis, as a percentage of their sales, they're going to retain less. The proprietor, the leader of the team, is going to retain less for the fact that there are people working with him or her. But that's fair. You want to make sure that those people are well compensated too.
Well, yeah.
So I don't really look at it as a trade-off. You want to be able to achieve both. Ultimately, your margins will be lower if you are a team, but on a nominal basis, your compensation will still be higher, and you will produce a better result for your clients.
I agree with that. So better result, less take home in your pocket. But you know what? But what you didn't bring up was that you pay people to do certain functions. But that means you get more time to do either what you're good at or what you want to do. But here's what when I asked that question earlier, I wanted to get into maybe some numbers again, as much as you feel comfortable. You're doing about $80 million. You have a team of 8. What is your GCI and what does that net look like? Whatever you're comfortable with answering.
Well, I mean, our firm, Keller Williams, we have a book written by Gary Keller, the millionaire real estate agent, in which he pretty much lays it out, and he also doesn't, make it up. He also went out and interviewed hundreds of agents at the highest levels of our industry to make a determination as to exactly what they were doing and what they were keeping of what they made. And based on our models, you're going to be keeping approximately in the low 30s, as a percentage of your gross income, of your gross commission income, if you reach a certain size. Now, we do somewhat better than that on our team. We will be closer to 50%. But that has to do with our price points. It has to do with my level of involvement. I mean, these are all choices that we make as far as how involved we want to be versus how much of our time we want to buy. So you alluded to that, and that's absolutely correct. I do practice real estate. I don't just have a team who does it underneath me where I'm not directly involved. And if I wanted to do that, I would lower my net in order to get qualified, talented individuals in there to conduct business for me. I mean, you can never totally step away. I mean, there are cases when people can do that, but usually you're going to remain somewhat involved. But for most real estate agents, it is not only about having a business. We actually do enjoy what we do. We want to be involved. And if you get actively involved and are part of your team and working out there in the field as well and giving it everything you have, then a byproduct of that will be that your margins will be a little bit better than the agent who really just wants to stare down from on high and deploy everybody in the field and not have a whole lot to do with what's going on day to day.
Yeah. And dude, I know a lot of those people who go in, 2 days a week for half a day. So let's specifically talk about your team. And what that looks like, because in terms of, I've talked with some people who have teams and like everything's isolated. That you have a buyer's agent, that's all they do. There's an ISA, that's all they do. If somebody has a lead and they bring it in, they give it to Susie. Susie inputs it, right? And like everybody's got this very specific functions. What does your team look like, and how are the responsibilities from marketing to data, insertion? How's that handled? Maybe that's too big of a question.
Yeah, we also do delineate by function. I mean, and it makes perfect sense to do that. Your buyer agents are going to focus on your buyer experience. You're going to have a transaction coordinator. We have a transaction coordinator who's just wired to win for our clients as a transaction coordinator. We have a marketer and about to hire a second for superior marketing support. We also have a rental specialist, someone who will only handle our rental transactions, which is support for our sales department. And many teams will have a listing specialist. I am our team's listing specialist. So when people call us to list their property, they're going to be meeting with me. Now, I think the wisdom behind differentiating the roles and making sure that everybody is a specialist at what he or she does not mean that you don't have an all-hands-on-deck moment frequently. Mm-hmm. So we will have times when I will be out there showing a rental property, or one of our buyer agents will pitch in and get a smoke detector certificate or get a non-assessment certificate signed or conduct a walkthrough. Even our marketing people who are licensed may get on the phone and discuss the merits of a particular property. By and large, though, you are going to have your areas of specialization, and that's the value proposition.
So, right. I do not disagree with anything you're saying, and I want to go back and pick up some of that stuff. But I want to bring out this point. How is a guy like you, again, very smart, educated guy, like? It takes humility, Stephen, for you to go, you know what, I'm going to pick up my stuff, get my keys, and I'm going to go meet with some person who just wants to rent a house. Like, it just seemed like, how do you do that? I don't know that because again, most people, if you say, hey, go door knock, they're like, I'm too good for that. How do you maintain your sense of humility to be able to operate at that level?
Well, I don't know. I think a lot of successful people that I meet really do understand that excellence has its tentacles down to the innermost parts of what's being delivered to your clients and your customers in any business. And so some of this isn't only about being competent in your particular function. It's also about understanding that when a group of people work together and when they mutually support one another, and they will invariably struggle as a group to achieve something greater together than any of them could achieve alone. That when you talk to teams, true teams that achieve this result, they will tell you that something electric happens. And it happens when their egos are left at the door when they walk into that place of business. Yeah. And that's true of any team. It's true of baseball teams. It's true of teams in other industries. It's true of families, if we think about it. Families where people, where the parents will have a role and the children will have a role. Nothing's perfect. Life isn't perfect. And there are times when the brothers and sisters among us, if we let the metaphor hold, we argue and so forth. But true team, as they say, there's no I in team. I mean, that's an ideal. And people do want to stay in their area of specialization, and they always do want to feel that they're in drawing from the reservoir of goodwill and perhaps doing more than they feel they ought to be doing that day or that week, that in the bigger picture they haven't depleted that reservoir of goodwill. The big picture, they're with people who have their backs. And this is, I would say, what I would respond with to anyone who just slaps the word team on their marketing materials and says they're a team. And there's a whole lot of difference between two agents, sitting up one night over coffee and deciding let's be a team. Yeah. Than it is to have a group of individuals come together and try to find the complementarity, try to find the fit, and to each be doing something that they were born to do. And so I don't know how much humility it really takes. But at the end of the day, we're all dust, if you just go forward a few years. And so for the difference, we're here and we are part of helping one another succeed, and that is an absolutely wonderful feeling. The other piece to consider is I actually believe in almost every field there are aspects of that field that are going to feel menial. Even if you have differentiated your functions, even if you farmed a good piece of it out, you're going to hear, there are doctors who they're recording some small thing in the church. They're doing clerical work at a point, but it's in totality that they realize that they're delivering something that's of value, obviously of great value, to their patients. And, that's how we all feel. So, there are times before the open house, I'll be like Annette Bening in American Beauty, and I'm grabbing, the paper towel and the Windex from under the sink, and I'll chuckle to myself, like I'll do what it takes. And I think that it's to everyone's credit who gets over themselves, and those are in small ways that we do that, but it was in a bigger way that I had to do it, just to realize that it's always right to follow your passion. And real estate is my passion.
Look, I agree. I agree with everything you said. And I think the one thing I think I can add to that is, if you are a team and you all believe that you're building something that's bigger than than you, the sum of the team is larger than you as the individual. Now, if you're building your brand, I guess you would jump in and clean the toilets, and you're not above that at all, because you know what, the brand is bigger than you.
Oh yeah, big time.
So I really quick, let's. I kind of got us a little bit sidetracked there, but you mentioned marketing, and I want to talk a little bit about marketing because you have a marketing person now. You're adding another one, and in our notes when we booked you some time ago, you wanted to talk about what constitutes effective marketing for agents. Talk to us a little. Give us your thoughts on marketing as a Yale MBA person and somebody who's done real estate since '85.
So marketing is a science, and Madison Avenue knows that. It's also a science that's becoming far more sophisticated. So none of us are going to entirely keep up with that, but some of the tenets of marketing don't change. One important one that we try to observe is to meet our market where it lives, to enter the conversation that our clients are having in their own minds. And this is what the corporations do. I mean, Volvo did not decide that it wanted to be a car built around safety with its image, its PR image, advancing that value proposition. It observed through research, it didn't, not casually, that was the conversation going on inside the minds of its prospects, of the buyers of cars. That was where the greatest potential was for them to fill a niche. And that's true for all of us in our individual markets as real estate agents. For us, we tried to look at that when we created our own identity, when we thought about our mission statement, when we thought about our vision statement, when we decided what our marketing campaigns would look like. We wanted to be able to enter the conversation that our clients were having in their own minds. For us, that meant that we decided that we were going to be the economists of choice. We're in a downtown market where we noticed that the right brain was very much present in our buyers who wanted to fall in love with what they were going to live in. All well and good and important in any purchase of residential real estate. But we also noticed that there was no shortage of left brain there as well. These people were deploying and are deploying a lot of capital. When people are buying homes, they're spending a lot of money. They're perceiving it as well as an investment vehicle. And they're very interested in the metrics of the market. And I think that's true for in particular, the urban markets in this country, but I think for many buyers. And we felt that was an underserved niche and one that we wanted to fill. We wanted to be in a position to know the numbers of our market, and our market has responded to our filling that niche. In general, with marketing, I also believe that if you look in any locale, you're going to see a whole bunch of agents doing the same thing. And there are some respects in which doing the same thing pays off. For example, we're placing our properties in MLS. Okay, doesn't mean I'm not going to place my property in MLS. So I'm not advocating abandoning everything we do by way of best practices, because that would result in just unplugging ourselves from our business. That would be ridiculous. But in other respects, there are things that we do on the marketing side that are just, one big case of Me Too. For example, the real estate rag in any town or city, where all of the agents have their pictures with the property, the picture of the property virtually indistinguishable from one another. There's an opportunity to zig when they zag, to do something different. That's true. For example, we looked at the mailings that agents send out. And what we noted, and there's nothing wrong with it, it's just that everybody's doing it. I mean, we came to an era of self-promotion in the 90s, and agents have really not deviated from that. I mean, the era of the celebrity agent has been over for some time now in terms of what's really succeeding. a picture of you and a picture of the property, it's fine, but it does not distinguish you.
Yeah.
So, we feel like that, on the marketing side, that there is room to do something a little bit different, and so we have done that. We've done that in our advertising, and we've decided that these postcards, these individual mailings, for example, that go out, that what we have a lot of in our market, were agents sending out, one-offs, just listed cards, just sold cards, and we decided there was room for something a lot more substantial. And so we put together something that we call our stakeholders report that goes out just twice a year. Now, it is supplemented by a lot of other marketing that we do. But it did, by definition, mean for the cost of putting that together and sending it out that we would probably have less frequency than what a lot of the marketers had been suggesting was ideal. But we decided we were okay with it because we felt that if we sent something out that was considered to have a longer half-life, to be, of much more value, that it would be memorable and that it would result in more business for us and that we'd be making, perceived as making a greater contribution, and we are. So we've gone with that. And, we don't purport to be the ones that are, the innovators in every case. I'm happy to be early majority. Most of the ideas we come up with are because people who are out there somewhere, and that's the wonderful thing about our business. We're surrounded by literally a million others practicing, the vast majority of whom don't whatsoever compete with us. So it's all a matter of being able to look at what's working and to pay attention to that, and then we can, there are people who are going to innovate, but I think that's very few of us, quite frankly, where that's going to be our specialty. So, we've been able to be early majority rather than just the innovators, and it's been effective for us.
Okay, so let's. I think that you said a lot of really great stuff there, and I want to unpack it a little bit. I want to know, first of all, this is for my audience. So Stephen was talking about left brain, right brain, right? So left brain is very logic, analytical. Right brain is creative and imagination, right? Being imaginative. Mm-hmm. So I can. Here's the thing. Let me just, and I want you to jump in whenever you want to, Stephen. But when you put together this stakeholders report, and just listening to that, right? I'm sure it's almost it sounded like what you were saying is you put together a white paper, right? This very, very analytical left brain kind of paper. You do it twice a year. And, I'm wired that way, right? So I want to see that. I bought the house I live in now. I paid $1 million for back in 2003, right? And I was 33. It was a big, big deal for me. And I got in and I did math and, I said, oh, geez, how much could I lose? And I looked across the nation, in terms of downturns. Now, nobody saw what happened in 2008, right? Because that was cataclysmic and never happened before. And then I got into, because my agent at the time let me into the MLS, and I got in and I said, well, I want to see if how long has people lived in this neighborhood, and are there notices of default, right? I wanted to know what these people look like. So I'm that way. And you could put together, for your farm or whatever, this very, very white paper kind of thing with that kind of information. But how it seems to me that you're doing something, you're blending that left, right. What does that marketing campaign look like?
Okay, so I'm glad you mentioned blending because that's exactly what we're doing. Okay. Diana Kokoska, in fact, the director of education for Keller Williams, she has an expression that goes, logic makes people think, but emotion makes them act. Mm-hmm. So you would never just do something left-brained alone. The stakeholder report that we put out, it has a lot of stats on our market. For the preceding period, we'll have, days on market and average and medians and price per square foot and, all kinds of metrics like that. No,
and hold on. Sorry, let me just jump in here real quick. Now, is that for your market or is that for like a farm area?
Well, our market is our farm area. I'm rather geographically centered, in downtown Boston, okay, for example, in my market. So, we're pretty focused there. So we do have a lot a lot that we deliver by way of the market metrics. But then along with that, we'll have close-ups on nonprofits, or I'll do before and after a renovation story with photos before and after from the same vantage point. We'll go back in time because it's an historic neighborhood and get a picture from 150 years ago of a significant piece of architecture on the inside. And then having identified the property, go and take another picture of it, now and interview a couple who live there. That kind of thing. And those two sides of the equations, complement one another. So
right.
the city where we live, we believe has an appeal, and it's a unique appeal. But at the same time, for example, it's analogous to the appeal of other cities that have a similar demographic. So we were interested to know, well, okay, these locales are all different. Individually they have something that is distinct and not monoculture. But by the same token, there are some threads, some commonalities that they share. What are those? And we took a look, and we decided, and we looked at what those variables were, and we decided to present them. And we found that what really made our area a lot like other areas that are also booming throughout the country were things like well-preserved period architecture, a mixture of commercial and residential woven into the landscape that created walkability, proximity to an engine of economic growth, a culture that embraces diversity, an art scene, and a high rate of small business formation. And when you had all of these ingredients, you had something electric that was like DuPont Circle or the Castro or the West Village or the area that we work in downtown Boston. And so that kind of thing, a lot of those right brain observations, which in and of themselves aren't all touchy-feely. There's some science behind it, but there were human interest in nature. And, we wanted things like eye candy. We had a drone hover above the rooftop of the most expensive rental in Boston last year. And to snapshot it with this really wonderful bird's eye view of it. People want that eye candy. At the same time that they want to know, if you regress the variables on each other, what's the point of diminishing returns on price per square foot as you move from a smaller property to a larger. So when you deliver the blend, you're kind of addressing the right and the left side of the brain. And, notably for us, we wanted it to be in something that was, far more substantial than what we could possibly put out, for example, in a postcard. What I would also say about marketing, just to step back a second about marketing, it's the same thing I would say about trying to create a team. The idea of team is that you're putting people together and that the sum is more than the parts. It's greater than the parts. And that's true with marketing as well. A big problem I think real estate agents have is that they want to do it themselves. We are industrious, self-sufficient types, and we want to just go do it. And so I would say with respect to many of the functionalities, many of the things that we do as agents, and certainly our marketing, don't try to do it alone. You need to reach out to people who understand these things better than you do. It does not mean you're not going to be in the mix. It doesn't mean that your strengths won't be brought to the table, but you want to make sure that your weaknesses are controlled and mitigated by the fact that you've got people for whom your weaknesses are their strengths. So we tapped an outside marketing firm, and they've done an excellent job at guiding us. And because there's absolutely no corporation that's trying to, make a substantial dent and create market share, in its market, that isn't reaching out and hiring a professional to help. Well, we as real estate agents, we understand that, but we don't have those budgets, and that's fine. I'm not whatsoever advocating that people go outside of what they can spend. You've got to decide what you can spend. Yeah. And if that is $100,000 or $100, literally $100, there is a way to leverage that and make the most of it. There are paid and non-paid supports. Yep. There are sources of great ideas that allow us to tap into others' wisdom. In fact, I went to a course a couple of years ago on marketing for $99 or less. And I was blown away by the kinds of creative and impactful marketing that was being done. And what a lot of those ideas had in common is that people were reaching outside of what they themselves would know, and they were tapping into the wisdom of others. And of course, it's a lot easier to do that. You can do it with greater reach and possibly greater impact if you have a big budget behind you, but you're not out of the game if you don't.
Right.
But what you don't want to do is just isolate yourself and think, okay, what am I going to do? And then go online and just click out a couple of postcards.
Well, and look, I mean, that's why this show exists. I mean, people are listening to your stuff, and I'm sure that somebody's going to try to do a stakeholders report like yours.
I hope they do.
And I'd love to get a copy and maybe post it to your website or our website for your episode, if that's possible. If not,
I'll be happy to send a couple over to you.
That's awesome. Well, look, in addition, let me just give you my 2 cents. So with that stakeholders report, you talk about very left brain, right? Days on market, diminishing returns on price per square foot, and then you get into the more aspirational, right? The historic houses and the personal interviews of the people who rented the most expensive rental. As a marketer, I think what the only thing that's missing, and I just want to get your take on this, is what is missing from that equation, in my viewpoint, is the forecasting piece, right? So I would love to see all that, and then I'd love to see you and your team say, okay, listen, here, let's talk about, I'm going to give you some forecast numbers for what's going to happen with rates. I'm going to give you some kind of forecast next quarter, next year, whatever, for what's going to in terms of appreciation in the market. I'm going to forecast out for you, what's going to happen with foreclosures and notice of defaults. What's your
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because that's the last piece that is in our stakeholder report, is a piece called the Market Outlook, and we do exactly that. I think you're 100% right. But apparently you've come to it without the benefit of all the outsourcing I had to do, so I should have hired you.
Dang, you should.
Yes, we do exactly that.
Okay.
And ultimately you need to make a call. You need to make a call on something in order to have a forecast. The fact of the matter is, very few of us make this kind of thing up. We don't have the data. We didn't personally do the research. What we do is we look at what others are researching. We synthesize their perspectives and opinions and individual forecasts, and we come to an opinion as to who's on the money. I mean, in the last one, in the one that we just did a few months ago, we were looking at rates, and we were looking at what the Fed would do, and we came to the determination that with inflation running significantly below the 2% target, that we did not expect the Fed to move, and that the forecast we were making was a bet against the economy overheating as the result of asset bubbles, at least in the short term. And we also looked at some of the factors in the disinflation going on out there as being positive factors. Mm-hmm. Even the fracking, increased productivity, the slowdown abroad. And for everyone that was forecasting, this kind of stability in rates, you had people who were saying, look, we've been printing for 6 years now. This was an unprecedented infusion of liquidity to the system, and we're going to see the Fed begin to move to raise rates. Well, I think that is going to happen. The question is when. Yeah. And we don't need to be right every time, but we need to be clear about which pieces of information we deemed to be salient and timely. And, naturally, we want to be more right than not. But I think my point is, when we are correct, it isn't because we made it up.
Right.
We all have the ability as agents, both with respect to the market outlook and with respect to a lot of things. Having people, for example, who are purchasing and want to know what can they purchase that will insulate them to the greatest extent possible against a possible downturn in the future. So we're all looking at the demographics of our market and what are the builders building and what will increase in value relative, to other things. And good agents have an opinion about these things, and we don't usually make it up. We're able to distill from what we read and see what we think is the next thing to happen, and so we do try to do that in our market outlook. And the idea is, I think it helps us as well. The idea is to be right more than we're not, and I think it's very helpful when we eat and sleep and breathe one thing in the whole world for our professional lives, and this is what the benefit of specialization is, that we probably are in the best position possible to be experts on our individual markets. And I have to say, I think most agents are. When I meet agents at conferences and various events, and even just next to me on a plane, I'm constantly learning from their brilliance, because I think this is one of the most entrepreneurial fields out there. And I joke, and it's just a joke, that we're like the Moulin Rouge. We're in the life. But I have a lot of respect for my fellow agents, and I learn a lot from them. And now I'm able as well to teach some to them. So there's a reciprocity there, and it's great.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think again, to just bolt on something to what you're saying, I think, when you are going to make a prediction or do an outlook or something like that, I think it's helpful, and obviously, as you have done, you look at more than just your market. So you take this your local area outlook and say, look, here, what's here, and then you have to look at national things. What's happening nationally, either politically or whatever, that's going to affect your local area. And then I think if you were really get into something like rates, you have to go, okay, look, we owe a ton of money to China, right? In terms of the U.S., will they keep rates down even artificially to impact our debt payments to a place like China? And I think, and here's the deal, I think, Stephen, is if a true marketer will do all that work as you have done, and a true marketer will do the next thing. And let me see if you've done this. Here's what I would do in your shoes. I'd do two things. Number one, I'd write a press release, and I would release that press release for $250. You can release it on PR Web, and it goes everywhere across the nation, right? And to all the right news outlets, everything. And then I would follow that PR Web national press release up with a press release, a direct send to the local radio stations and TV stations. And I guarantee you that if you do that, and you're consistent with it, you're going to end up on TV, certainly locally, maybe even nationally, and you're going to end up on radio.
Yeah, we actually have done some of that. I haven't used PR Web. I like that idea. We do communicate with the press, and I have been a guest on local radio and TV programs, and sometimes interview with various newspapers, the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. Awesome. No agent can get enough of that, right? We've never used the PR Web feature, though. I think that would be great, and that's something that our marketing team does do, communicate with the press. In fact, the New York Times just came in and photographed one of our properties and ran it in a feature last week.
Wow.
But it's a great idea to tie the market outlook, anyone's perspective as an agent, and to kind of blast that out and use the media to position yourself as an expert. And I think it's a great idea.
Absolutely, and in a lot of ways, those morning, especially the early morning TV shows, where people, in terms of average quarter hour listeners, right? People tune in literally for 15 minutes. They want to see the weather, and the traffic, and those stations are always looking for content. So anyhow, I love what you're doing, Stephen. I really, really do. We got to start wrapping up. I've had such a great time talking with you. For people who, somebody out there and they're listening to you and they're like, oh, you know what, I want to follow and do what Stephen's done. I want to build a team. Give us just some quick tips on, because look, you can't just hire willy-nilly, right? You have to be cognizant of culture from day one, or you're going to end up building a Frankenstein thing. Like, what is your, in terms of hiring or identifying talent or how to go and get teammates? I don't have a better question than that. Just give us your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, fair enough. So the team building coursework is out there. But, as a real estate agent, let's say that you're a real estate agent who's practicing now as a sole practitioner and you want to begin thinking about building a team. Make a list as you go through your day of everything that you do. And everything won't come to mind. Keep the list with you. And whenever you find yourself doing something that is not on the list, add it to the list. And then begin to think about which of those things that you are really good at and that you find very central to being in your 20%, or ideally in your 1%, right? And that's bringing the Pareto principle, to the extreme and really amplifying your skill set. And that's going to leave you with a list of things that you need to find somebody else to do. As far as outreach, I think you want to look at some of the diagnostics that are available to gauge behavioral types, and it's whether it's Myers-Briggs or it's we use the DISC, we use AVA. That behavior is going to tell you a lot. It will not test integrity, it will not test intelligence, it will not test motivation. We estimate it to be worth about 25% of the hiring decision. But it's important. It's necessary but not sufficient basis on which to hire behavior. Because if you're, chatty Cathy, and I'm life of the party, and I'm always thinking about who I have for what, and that's all well and good. But are you the one who has a piece of paper crumpled up under your seat with a phone number on it that you can't find, or are you obsessed that the blue paper clip not spill into the red paper clip bin in your desk? You need one of those, and so that's about just beginning to find balance. And I also think you never want to consider that you're done, not with your business or with building your team. You don't build it to then look at it and say, there, it's done, I've built it. It's a work in progress always. And there are always times when, it feels like smooth sailing and, this is great and look what we've built. And then there are other times when you're going to be a bit in crisis. And as the kanji kind of goes, that the kanji for crisis is danger and opportunity, the two different characters together. So I would say you want to be looking at that as well. You definitely want to be always focusing on technology because we have a choice about that. And the same technology that threatens possibly to eliminate the agent is the very same technology that, if it's utilized properly, will be the tool of the productive agent. So that's something that cuts through everything that we do, and you want to make sure that you're on that cutting edge. There's a lot of destructive innovation in American business, in business period, and so it's agents that are out in front of that and figuring out how to deliver value as a team or individually that will survive and thrive.
That's so good, man. I think. I do think there's a book in your future, buddy. But let me go back for a second. So I want to get clear on this. DISC profile is you use for hiring. And listen, for everybody out in the audience, if you don't know your DISC, you can I have a link to where you can take the test. Just go to Super Agents Live, go to the site, and sign up for the free membership. And there's a link there. So if you don't know it, you should know your DISC profile now. For you, Stephen, use that DISC profile for 25% of your hiring decision.
Yes.
Let me ask you this. Okay, so here's how I use that DISC profile. So I'm 99D, 99I, 34S, 34C, right? I would be a terrible buyer's agent. That's not my deal. Now, when I look at people, right, especially if they ask me to coach them, and I don't do coaching, but I say, hey, let's take it. If I see a very high and very S sort of temperament, I go, you know what? You're going to be more on the buyers. You'd be really good at, you might be paternal, right? So, do you use that way to put people in the right seat, as Gary Keller?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we 100% do. I would be really loath to hire. We don't just use DISC. We also use AVA, but and each company would tell you that it's completely unlike anything else. But the fact is they share in common that it's going to create a behavioral profile, and I would be loath to go way outside of it for a hire once I've determined what my preferred behavioral style is. But the reason I say that it's 25% and not much more is because there are other things that we're looking for as well.
Yeah.
You are looking for integrity. You are looking for intelligence, and you're looking for fire in the belly.
Yep.
You also are checking references. You're looking at the trajectory of someone's life when you hire. You want to see that they've got a little bit, depending upon the role. But for a sales position, you want to see that they've got a little bit of something to prove. You want to see somebody who's been willing to go against the grain, and and you want somebody who's competitive. And quite frankly, in sales, I think you want somebody who's at least somewhat motivated by money.
Yeah.
I mean, that's true for a salesperson.
Yep.
So yeah, we use the disc to understand behavior and to also understand the ideal work environment in which this candidate would thrive.
Got it. Okay. I got to try to wrap this up quickly. I'm going to ask you 3 questions. Normally, I just wrap up with 2, but I'm going to ask you 3. So, really quickly on technology. That's a big topic. I'm not asking about this big crazy technology thing, but a lot of people, I get emails all the time. They ask me about CRMs. So, technology is important. CRM, utilizing it. What CRM system do you use?
You're talking about database and such?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, we're using Top Producer.
Okay.
I think we're looking at Salesforce. But I have to tell you, I believe that it's more important what you're doing with what you have than it is what you have.
Yeah, I agree.
Which isn't to say that I don't think there's more reach, or potential for some of them, which is why we're looking at Salesforce right now, because we like the platform and we like what that might be able to do for us. But nothing replaces sitting around at the table, everybody on your team, or just you if you're an individual agent, and actually updating everything in your database, communicating with it, making sure that it's accurate. When have people purchased their properties? What's the anniversary of their purchase? How are you going to recognize that? Is their email correct? When did you last connect with them? I don't care if you have Outlook or if you have Top Producer or Salesforce or if it is scribbled in a notebook. If you actually connected with all of those people, then you have something that is alive and relevant. And I think sometimes we use these tools, the purchase of them, as something that's supposed to suffice for actually engaging our clients, and that's never going to get where you want to go. So, but for now, we've been Top Producer.
Got it. Okay, I love it. Yeah, I mean, it's very similar to the best CRM is the one that you use, right? Well, even if it's Okay. So here's so to wrap up, I'm going to ask you for a book. Now I didn't know you're a KW person, and chances are we know a ton of people in common. So I'm gonna because you're a KW person, you cannot recommend any of Gary's books. It comes up way too often on the show. Okay, so here's the question.
But that's all I read are Gary's books.
No. Let me ask the question. Okay, I'm an aspiring agent. I have $25. What book should I go buy today?
One that I'm reading now that I really like for younger agents is the Your 20s, The Defining Decade. I like it a whole lot. And actually, Gary recommended it.
That's interesting. Why are you reading that? Why?
Well, first of all, because you're either in your 20s, or if you're building a team, you've got young talent that's in its 20s.
Got it. Okay.
And but there's always book du jour. I mean, there's the 7 Habits, and there's all Tony Robbins stuff, and I just love nonfiction, and so I'm always reading. And one doesn't invalidate the other. There's always I like the Marketing Classic Positioning by Al Rees and Jack Trout. Phenomenal book on marketing.
Yeah, no, look, and there's a lot of great ones, and certainly everybody should read, the Gary Keller's books. They matter. I'm listening right now to The Power Broker. That's a crazy book. 66 hours of audio. Anyhow, listen. Anybody, if you've not read Gary Keller's, the one thing.
Millionaire Agent?
Yeah, Millionaire Agent for sure. Look, go get a free copy. Just use our link. Go to audibletrial.com/superagentslive. And by the way, I just used my own link yesterday. I started a new Amazon account, and I got that Power Broker book. It was an $84 book. I got it for free. So if you want a free book, use our link. Now, here's my last question, Stephen. I know I kept you on the phone a ton. I appreciate you sticking with me. Do you have a personal habit that you feel has contributed to your success?
I think, I have a few of them that I think that have contributed. What one would I single out? What personal habit has most contributed to my success? I think it's the desire to see the people around me succeed. And it's a pretty selfish desire, because when you build a team, if the people around you are not succeeding, they're not going to stay with you. And if they are succeeding, then not only will they stay with you, but you've built something that is very powerful, because if they're succeeding, you're succeeding in greater measure, just by definition of how it's all going to be structured. And and I think that may be less of a habit than a perspective.
Right.
But the habit is always making sure to check with them and to understand what it is that's important to them, and help them get it.
Yeah, I love it.
It's not always the same thing, and everyone has something different that motivates him or her. For some people, it's recognition. For some people, it's personal growth. For some people, it's money. And for a lot of people, it's something else, or it's a combination.
I'll tell you, I don't know you, Stephen, and the only time we've ever spent together is on this phone call today. And my sense of you is that you have a habit of learning. You sound like a very open guy. You sound like you are. I had Dave Jenks on the show, who co-wrote Millionaire Agent, and he said the most.
Oh yeah, I know him well. Great guy.
Yeah, I've had Jay Papasan on the show too.
Okay.
But Dave said, hey, you got to always be learning based. So my sense is that you're learning based, and I think that's probably one key to your success. And I don't know you, but hey, look, Stephen, here's the deal. I always suggest to my audience members, if they're listening to this and they've gotten something out of it, I always encourage them to reach out to my guest, which today is you, and say hello, say thank you. Where can people find you? And look, maybe somebody's in Boston and they're like, hey, I want to join Stephen's team. I don't know if you're currently hiring, but let people know where they can reach you and say thanks.
Yeah, we're always in conversation with talent. Yep, the best way to reach me by email, Stephen@StephenCohenTeam.com. Stephen with a V. Team like baseball. Stephen@StephenCohenTeam.com. And I will definitely respond to any inquiries I receive.
Awesome. All right, Stephen. Hey, man, thanks for coming on the show. Let's keep in touch.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate your time and for including me. You got a great show.
Of course. See you, buddy.
Okay, take it. Bye.
Let's go. Yeah.